notes on what I say. But I'm here really because I love theater. And I'm here because, as Susan said, when I graduated from graduate school, I had a teacher who was incredible. And he said, at the core, when you graduate from a class like mine, he said, you must be excellent storytellers. And at the very bare bones, you begin by being a storyteller. And then on our best days, we get to change the world. And I think that's why I love theater. And I feel really excited about being a teacher here. I really feel so excited about coming back, and I teach in the elementary school, the lower school, so sorry, the lower school. I know it's like you can't take the girl out of Westminster, it's just terrible. And then the middle school and the upper school. I teach in all 3 divisions, and I love it. And I thought a lot about what I wanted to say today, and I think about the people that I worked with in New York, my colleagues and my friends, and they, at age 9, at age 12, at age 30, at age 55, they continue to study acting, and they continue to learn how to speak, and they continue to learn how to have a voice. And when I talk to administrators here who are the principals of the lower school and the middle school and the upper school, and Linda Chernyovsky, who's the head of performing arts, and Keith Evans, they talk to me about what they want the students to learn, and they say that they want the students to learn how to have a voice, and they want the students to learn how to speak. And so that really is my favorite thing about theater, and that's really my favorite thing about being a teacher here. On a side note, I thought I would actually start. I opened up this magazine that is the Educational Theater Association magazine. It's called Dramatics. And I opened it up because I thought the article that I was going to be the most interested in is called Shackled by Debt. A BFA and student loans, is this a recipe for a career? I read that one. The one that was a little bit more fun and interesting to me is one that clearly was written by an educator, and it is resolutions for actors that the educator thinks that the actors need to have, and I thought I would read a few because I think it's really funny. I will actually, and I mean actually, sit down and read the whole script with my eyes. It's really, really boring, but so is everything you have to read when you could be on Facebook. Resolution number 2. I will get some therapy so I don't have anxiety attacks when I'm on stage away from my cell phone. Resolution number 3, I will stop crying in every scene even though I can, and people are amazed. Resolution number 4, I will not sulk when I don't get cast in the musical just because I don't sing. That's why they call it a musical. I don't see why we even bother to study acting. I took a Poland class and nobody had even seen a play except this one guy who thought he had but couldn't remember. On the other hand, everybody said they had seen 100 films. I mean, who in their right mind wants to be in Two Gentlemen of Wherever in Topeka, Kansas, when you could look sorrowfully sexy and be in a Bond film in LA? My resolution is to go to LA, which I believe is in California. I resolve that I will make fewer faces during William's death scene, even though he's terrible. I resolve that at least on opening night, I will say some of my lines the way the playwright wrote them. Incidentally, the writer of this is also a playwright. I resolve that I will tone down my warm-up in the women's dressing room, which consists of the cries of Amazon animals and very large birds. And my last favorite one is, I resolve I will stop missing entrances, even though flirting with Horace stage left is really beginning to pay off big time. And I will say that although those are written for school, it kind of can be a little bit accurate for the world of Broadway too. Sometimes there are fantastic chorus girls who are doing shows for a very long time and they're flirting with Horace off stage left big time. But I was thinking that while on our not so great days, this does resemble our class one of those moments a few of you have heard me tell about before. In the 4th grade here last year, we decided to do a very, very, very shortened version of Hamlet. And I remember thinking, seeing this 9-year-old boy named Philip McPhail, he had been sliced with his plastic sword by Horatio, you know, the poisoned sword. And he was dying on stage. And he, in his amazingly passionate soprano voice, is saying, "Oh, my Horatio." and I'm sitting there thinking, I think this is awesome. This kid is learning how to speak. And, you know, this is my theme, as you can tell. You know, he has great diction, he has fantastic projection, but most of all, he is speaking with great passion, and he is speaking with great commitment, and he's learning how to invest in the words that he is saying with such great excitement on stage. And he's learning how to come together with a core group of other actors, and he's learning how all of them work together and try to make each other better. And they try to not have one single weak link, and they try to really come together as a troupe of actors and perform and make something incredible. And these wonderful things happen on our stage. It may be a very small moment, but I really believe it comes back to that thing that my graduate school teacher told me. And he said, you know, on our days, we are excellent storytellers, but sometimes there are days when we can change the world. And I know that that's what we want our students to be doing here. So after my master's degree at NYU, I did go back and stay at NYU and teach the business. And so I am going to talk a little bit about the business of musical theater. When you come to New York as a young actor, right now, for Carnegie Mellon University, for example, I was reading that there are 1,200 students who audition for Carnegie Mellon University for the musical theater program. And there are 16 theater BFA majors and 12 BFA musical theater majors. And 1,200 people audition for those spots. It's incredibly competitive. There are also over 100 programs in colleges and universities around our country that have BFA degrees in theater and musical theater. And that is not including BA degrees, Bachelor of Arts, where people study theater and don't do as much performing. BFA means that they perform a little bit more. And they also do take sometimes some core classes like, you know, history, French, English, etc., especially if they're part of a major university and not just a conservatory. So in a lot of these beautiful musicals like 42nd Street, Peggy Sawyer comes to New York and she wants to be a musical theater star in New York City. And to me, I kept thinking, well, it's like that now, except all of these BFA musical theater kids come to New York and they think they're one of 12 that are amazing, and then there are 100 schools that have those 12. And then here comes June, and these students all graduate from their schools, and they come to New York. You know, these thousands of students descend upon New York and try to make it as musical theater stars. And it's tricky. So their goal is to meet managers, agents, casting directors. As scary as that sounds for those of you who are parents in the room, I'm scaring you off. As scary as that sounds, I did used to tell my parents who had asked me at NYU about what to do about their kids who wanted to make it in the world of musical theater. I really genuinely do believe that it is like working for a corporation. It's like working for Coca-Cola or AT&T, not that I totally know what that's like. But in my mind, that's sort of what it's like. I feel like you can really start at the bottom in the mailroom and you can work your way up. I do feel like there are people who are nephews of the boss who sort of launch their way to the top because they've got a connection. I do feel like that there are people who have a project that gets seen that's incredibly exciting, and that launches them to the top. I do feel like it's like a person who may have some sort of incredibly exciting idea, and they can find something themselves and create something themselves that launches them to the top. But I do believe, and I think it's because I lived it, I do believe that you can really begin to work very hard, and I think you can make connections, and I think you can find your way to work your way up. I had a lot of day jobs when I worked in New York, and one of my favorite ones was working for a casting director. Casting directors in New York are people who direct the casting for a show. So say Wicked, for example, that began somewhere around 13 years ago, I think, has a casting director who has worked for Wicked, hired by the producers from the beginning of time, and now still casts that show, casts replacements, casts understudies when someone leaves the show. The casting director finds actors by meeting them through agents, managers, etc. And the casting director hires readers. So I thought it would be fun to be a reader for the casting directors. He usually will hire a girl and a boy. And this particular casting director that I worked for was a man named Jim Carnahan, who went to Shamrock High School. And that's how I decided to sort of find my way into meeting him. And he loved people from Atlanta. He loved John Ellison Conley. I don't know if you guys remember him from Westminster. I actually worked with Shuler Hensley because of this casting director. He would put together readings with a lot of his favorite Atlanta people. We would read plays. And so I was a female reader for a play called Boeing, and the male reader was a guy, and I liked it so much that we did it last year at Westminster. The male reader was a guy named Bradley Whitford, who is not a household name, but he played a role called Josh Lyman on The West Wing. And I asked him what he thought about the world of theater in New York and what it was like. He was actually there pretty much because he was playing the lead in Boeing, and he wanted to audition the girls himself. He wanted to see if he had chemistry with any of the girls. And so he said something that I thought was great. Not only is it important to learn how to speak as an actor, but he said the thing that he learned about New York actors is that New York actors have no money. New York actors are poor. But New York actors have something else. New York actors have visibility. And in the same way that other people might invest money in a cause that means something to them, actors in New York invest their visibility. So at times when they are in a lead in a Broadway show, they use their visibility to speak about a cause that matters to them. So again, even as we grow older, we are always figuring out ways to have a voice and ways to learn how to speak. So as you work your way up, I also had this agent that I got through a showcase after my graduate school. In graduate school, you sort of put on a showcase of scenes and agents sign you. And my agent introduced me to a guy named Chris Rock. And I was the kind of person, I can't believe I'm saying this with my mom in the room. I was the kind of person who I took a lot of risks when I was auditioning for plays and TV and film. And I did because I was not like the blonde Barbie bombshell type person. I am a different type. I always have been. I've always been like a plus-size brunette girl. And so when I walked into the room, I knew I had to do something that was sort of different. And so I walked into this room, and I had this huge, like orange ruffly shirt on. I don't know what I was thinking. And I had this gigantic Southern accent in my role, and I had practiced, and I was very excited about it. And pretty much from that moment, I think he thought I was a little crazy, and he doesn't mind crazy. And from that moment on, he called me Kraka. And I really did try to tell him that Kraka's not really a flattering thing. I was like, it's like the white trash down the street. We don't really call it Kraka. But I was Kraka. So talk about the script. And my mom, you know, Southern tradition, what are you doing meeting a boy in a hotel? This is terrible. That was not the answer I wanted, so I called my sister. And called my sister, and my sister said, that is awesome. So I went. And luckily, it was a conference room, luckily. And, you know, I walked into the room and there were all these incredible actors there. Mostly African-American actors, Bernie Mac, Robin Givens, Wanda Sykes, Tracy Morgan, all these crazy, amazing actors. And I'm just thinking, I'm like this girl from Westminster in Atlanta, like what the heck am I doing there? And it was fantastic. I learned so much about comedy. And the very first thing he said to us was he said, it is after September 11th. And it was really just right after September 11th. And New York right now does not want to hear comedy. And yet, we're going to give them comedy. And we were putting together a script. We were sort of writing it and pulling it together to present to the producers at SKG, at DreamWorks. And he said, we're going to blow up the White House. And all the other actors and I just sort of looked around and were like, and he's like, we're going to tell kids the jokes. And we were like, oh my gosh, this is just going to be crazy. But somehow he sort of like pulled us in. And he kept saying things like, I believe in the world. And my wife and I are having a baby because I believe in the world. Incidentally, he wanted to name his baby Holiday Rock. Oh. And luckily he has this great wife who kind of wouldn't let him. And I think her name is something like Simone, I can't remember, but it's something beautiful. And so it was hysterical. And I remember walking into, after about a week of putting this together, walking into the producer's room, and it was to a person. It was white guys with white hair and suits. And we walk in, and it's these like guys with dreads and cracker. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure this is gonna go over very well, but we just tried. And it was great. It got produced and it happened. And I look back at that time and I think about this man who pulled us together as a group of actors, and he really wanted us to speak. And he was using his visibility to help us learn how to speak for this person. Another great moment. So you meet agents, you meet casting directors, you meet managers. Another great moment was when my agent said, you get to meet with this casting director. And once you keep climbing up the ladder, the casting directors do this crazy thing where they sort of like spread out their menu of shows in front of you as if you get to like pick one, and you really don't. But it's sort of this strange thing where you do these meet and greets. And I met with this casting director, and he was talking to me about Cyrano de Bergerac, a play. And I was incredibly excited. I got to meet the director, and then the only time it's ever happened to me in the whole entire world, I got cast in a play without ever reading for a part. It was very strange. And I got into Cyrano, we were doing a matinee, and we all went home for dinner, and one of our castmates came back for the evening show, and he was just white as a sheet. And he said, my apartment burned down. So during our matinee show, his entire building had burned to the ground. And after the evening show, one of the actors named Chris Sarandon stepped forward and said to the audience, one of our cast members' apartment has burned down. And here in the world of New York, we feel that we, as theater members, are family. And we are going to raise money right now with an auction, a live auction, for this cast member that we have. And again, as I said, we came together and used our visibility to help this guy. He was a brilliant cellist. He had a cello from his grandmother that he lost in this fire. And Kevin Kline was playing Cyrano, and Kevin Kline was very strange, had this precious thing about acting from the outside in. And everything was about the way things looked and the way he moved. And, so Cyrano is about the nose, it's all about the nose. And, it took about an hour in a dentist's chair to apply the nose before every single show. And Kevin Kline auctioned off his, precious dentist chair. And we all signed the back of it. And as we were doing it, he also rips off his nose and he says, "Can't we raise it $1,000 more?" And then Jennifer Garner's ripping off her eyelashes and she's saying, "I'll give you more eyelashes!" And I'm looking around thinking, is anyone else going to rip off any other artificial lips? It's really exciting. And then I also kept thinking, the DNA from Jennifer Garner's eyelashes and the DNA from Kevin Kline's nose can mix together to make this incredible theatrical baby. And no one knows, they should be bidding crazy amounts of money. But it was a great moment where a family of crazy actors came together and spoke on behalf of this person. So the last thing I'm going to say is parents not only ask me what's going to happen to my child when they graduate, but they often ask me, now and at NYU, they would say, is it worth it? And I will say, there are really rough times. There are moments when your heart is broken. And even now, there are moments with kids whose hearts are broken. And yet, I still believe what my graduate teacher used to say to me, and I still believe that theater can change one life, that theater can change our community.